And the title of this demo is a Swiss Army Knife for Startups, and that's really to expose that developing with Apery.io and Cordova is very precise and reliable. At the same time, it's a codeless software development environment. Really just to mark that for a very basic project, simple projects, you can go without writing a single line of code in Apery.io. Right, more about me. So I am Donatas Šereška, and I work as a front-end developer in Vilnius at Exadel. I have around 10 years of experience in front-end development, but in specifically Apery.io, I only have around half of the year of experience. But that's more than enough for me to start developing really complex mobile applications. Now, briefly speaking about the goal of the demo, is really this demo is really to introduce the novice Apery.io developers to Cordova and to enable them developing mobile applications. As well, for our prospective customers, I would like to expose a cost-effective way of app development, at the same time really to enable them to start developing fully featured mobile apps right away. Right, there are a couple of other bits worth mentioning is that the transition from a small startup project to a bigger enterprise application is really easy with Apery.io and Cordova, and there are a lot of other benefits worth mentioning, but I would like to ask Igor, would you like to speak more about those?
Yeah, hello, thank you. Hello. Yeah. Thank you. I am Igor. I'm from Belarus, and I work on Apery services, providing customers services, helping them to build their applications. And currently, I am working on some presentation to show some Apery features. And generally, Apery is this mobile development not only about shiny new devices, but about data. And when we talk about enterprise, we should share the data between some enterprise systems, share about Apery database. So when talking about enterprise, we should think about integration, how we can integrate AperyDB with other systems and so on. So this is, I think, also a big, a big topic to talk about how Apery can be integrated with other environment enterprise systems, but it's still to be, this enterprise, this new presentation is still work in progress. So that's some news from my side.
Yes, so we'll give another demonstration in the near future. Right, so these are the goals. I will move on alongside. The application I've developed for today's demonstration is called a flat tire check application, and it's worth mentioning that this application I created is based on a real startup project that is available on the market, but really the purpose of this is just to replicate it. It's a very basic wireframe application just to show you that it's very easy to start developing and realize your own idea in a very minimum amount of time. So for this specific application called flat tire check application, there are a few points I'm going to go through. So the first one, I will speak through what really it takes to start developing with Apery.io in Cordova. The second point I'm going to run through is the actual Apery.io project setup. There are a few points to remember when setting up the new project. I will then give a couple of words regarding the Cordova plugins, and also will show you the actual code of the application. And again, a few words regarding testing and debugging is very important, a couple of important points to remember. So now coming really to prerequisites, what it takes to start developing with Apery.io and Cordova. So in simple terms, just speaking about the actual project setup. Oh, I'm sorry, I think I've skipped twice. Okay, sorry, what it takes to start developing with Apery IO and Cordova. So in simple terms, it's really Apery and your mobile device is required for testing. But to be more specific, from my experience, I would like to say that you would need at least intermediate knowledge of JavaScript, specifically either AngularJS or jQuery, that's your preference. Obviously, you need an Apery IO platform, a set of Apache Cordova plugins, and your mobile device. Now moving on to the actual second point where we speak about the project setup. A couple of points to remember that when we create a new Apery project, I would recommend you to select the Ionic Blank app and specifically AngularJS, because obviously of the benefits of the easier code structuring, the binding, and ability to write your own directives, and that makes your life a lot easier. The second point when you set up your own project is you have to go to the App Settings tab and review the Resources tab and make sure the plugins, Cordova plugins that are required for your own project are properly selected. And one thing to remind you that Apery IO initially comes with Cordova plugins enabled, so really all you have to do is just to double check, make sure that the Apery IO has got Cordova enabled, just to confirm. Now I would like from this point to switch the screens to the actual Apery IO environment. And here we go, and I would like to briefly just to repeat once again on how to create a new app. So this is the create new app screen. Obviously you just type in some name and you go for an Ionic Blank, and this will be generated using AngularJS. So basically all of the setup, all of the libraries at this point will be included for you, so all you will have to do is to care of your own logic for your application. In this case, I won't click on the create button, but I will have my application already coded, so I do click on open button. Okay. And here you can see this is flat tire check application that I've created. So just coming back to the slide before where we review the app settings. So when you create your new application, please go to app settings first and make sure the Cordova plugins are imported. And indeed you can see we have Cordova for Android and iOS at the same time, so that's good. And the second thing you have to pay attention to is Cordova plugins. That's very important because when you develop your own project, you have to make a list which of the Cordova plugins are you going to use for your application. And in order to save space of your app, you really have to tick only those plugins that you require. In our case, for this application, I'm using the media plugin. I'm using at the same time the camera plugin, which enables us to take the picture. And I'm using the notifications plugin in order to display an alert box for a final result. Obviously, in this instance, I would probably untick everything and would tick my required plugins, but for now, I leave them all on. And that's it. That's all of the setup really needed for this application. So the next thing, you would probably create a new page and start developing from there. But in this instance, as I have a single page application, currently I already created one page called Home. And as you can see in here, I've drawn the view already. So initially we have an image placeholder. We have a message, and we have a button to trigger the camera function. Now, as you can see, just briefly to remind you that all of the interface of Apery IO is really supported by drag and drop, so you can take an image, drop it in here, and start the code around it. So as simple as that. As you can see, for this demo brief application, we only have these three elements in there. That's an image, the message, text area, and the capture button. Now coming to the scope functions to show you what actually this is all made of. This basic application has got really only 5 scope functions. So for initially we just declare some basic variables, some customization, and we have the snap function. This snap function is using Cordova camera plugin, and as you can see, in this case we only have a few lines of code, and this logic, what it does, it takes an image, converts the image into a base64 format, and then further it does some detection behind it. That's an image detection, the logic that counts the pixels and tells us, well, whether our car tire is flat or is in good condition. So this is some logic. And at the same time we have a couple of other functions, which is called the display confirm. And this function, as you can see, again, is using Cordova plugin called notifications alert. And this will give us the final result telling us whether the car tire is flat or is good. Mind that this is only a few lines of code as well. And the final plugin I'm going to use for this project is called the Play Sound, and the plugin, Cordova plugin, is called the Media plugin. And in this case, as you can see in here as well, there are just a few lines of code to be able to play the sound in your mobile application. In our case, depending on the result given, whether the car tire is flat or good, we will differ the sound tone for the response outcome. So that's it. This is all of the code of the application that I've created myself. And now I would like to go to the actual application and show you how it works. So this is a simple mock-up of the full tire, and as you can see alongside I have the mock-up of the flat tire in here. So now I will have my visor application open, and this you can see direct view of my mobile phone I'm handling in my hands. So what I will do now, I will click on the capture button, and as you can see the camera function appears that is controlled via the Cordova plugin. And now I'm gonna take the picture of the good tire, which is on the left, and I'm taking it. And let's see what is the final result. And it's saying the tire is good. And at the same time I have, let me just bring the flat tire. So I'm taking the picture again of the flat tire now. And now we'll take an image of the flat tire and let's see what is the response. And saying the car tire is flat. So once again, just to make sure that everything works as expected, I'll take a shot of, just hold on please. I think this plugin is just not responding for now. But that's fine, I will not try to fix this for now, but as you can see, this application works as expected. Obviously you can, to be more precise and more reliable in terms of detecting the flat tire, you can develop your own logic further using App.io within this detection function, but for this demonstration I think that is more than enough. And all this in just few functions in scope. Now coming back to our slide, moving further. Testing and debugging. There are a few points to remember when testing, developing for mobile. That obviously standard desktop browser does not have all of the features on the mobiles. Therefore, if you test the functionality of Cordova plugins, you must really test it on a mobile only. But for a very basic functionality which any desktop can handle, this can be tested on your desktop browser. But everything else, I would recommend you to take your real mobile device, load your application on your mobile and test it directly. And there are a few options in order to load your application into your mobile. One of them is the Apereo Tester application that is available for iOS and Android platforms, so you have to download it, sign in, load your project in there and test it. Or you can always export your project into a binary from the actual Apereo IDE environment. So that's very important, always test with your mobile device. Now the resources, there are a few websites, few points to remind you that obviously for an Apereo there is a dev center, very useful, but specifically the functionality related with Cordova plugins, you can find everything just by going to this link, and you will find each and every plugin described and properly documented. Right, that's it. This is a very short demo. Do you have any questions?